people who received no or terrible sex education, what was the most wildly inaccurate thing you were taught or told about sex and sexual health? Not sure this counts, but when I was 10 and asked my mom what AIDS was, she said it happened when people had sex without protection. Fair enough. Except my little brain confused protection with permission. And that was what I thought AIDS was. For longer than I care to admit. I received absolutely no sex education. I was raised a religious fundamentalist. Married at 19 to a girl that was as ignorant as I was and lost our virginity on our wedding night. Married for 13 years. I learned what and where a clitoris was from my second sexual partner at the age of 32. I always thought you were supposed to be really gentle with the penis. So my first time giving a hand job I had the lightest grip possible so I wouldn't hurt him. And he showed me just how tightly you should squeeze. I was shocked, lol. I also thought your period was supposed to be just a dot of blood. Hence the name period. Had a rude awakening with that one. Our sex ed teacher also taught history and turned an L into a civil rights abuse. You know the help had to enter through the back door back in the day, but Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. fought so y'all could enter through the front. So stay out of the back of the bus and park your you know what up front. Every guy I've dated has an I have a dream speech that contradicts this. Edit. Gold. An L gold. Thank you. Awesome stranger. My mum told me there was no such thing as ovulation when I was 9. To this day I haven't had the courage to ask her how she thinks I got here. I read in a book once that women either have their period on the full moon or the new moon. I actually believed this for years. Then one day I was out with my mom and I saw the full moon. I said, "I guess all you women are having a bad day today." She was like, "What do you mean?" "Because all the women have their periods when the moon is full." She laughed. "We're not frickin' werewolves." Oh. Basically sex equals your life is ruined and there's nothing you can do about it then. Little bit inaccurate. That you can get pregnant from hugging and that you can get AIDS from kissing. It was 1999 when it had been proven that HIV was not spread through casual contact. My sex ed was cassette tapes of an old man basically just saying don't have sex before marriage. But one of the things he said was I grew up on a farm. My middle school teacher told the class that condoms were not effective at all for protecting against STDs and only worked 50% in stopping pregnancies. And that anyone who told you otherwise was a disease pervert trying to trick you into sex. Abstinence teaching. Ladies and gentlemen. My best friend thought you could only get pregnant when you were on your period. And that condoms only went on the tip of your dick. Her mom and dad literally never said anything about sex around her. That girls just pee out the semen. Like. No. You don't pee out of your vagina. That was in middle school. High school was more scare tactics. Every time you have sex with someone, you have sex with everyone else they had sex with. Also a lot of lessons about HIV and AIDS. But no other STIs. And a lot of misleading info about the effectiveness of various types of birth control. It was very much I won't tell you not to have sex. But I also won't tell you how to do it safely, how to prevent all of these horrible things I'm telling you about. I've heard that peeing after sex is useful to prevent getting a UTI. When I got my curse period, for the first time I asked about tampons. It just seemed like it would be less messy than pads. Also, my periods were very inconsistent. I would go without one for a few months. Then have my period for 3 to 4 weeks in a row with heavy flow and terrible cramps. Tampons would have made life easier. But my mom insisted I couldn't use them because I was a virgin. SMH. If you have sex in a hot tub, you can't get pregnant. When you go to sleep, your period stops. My friend also believed that girls only had their periods on the full moon cycle. These are things I had other people come to me about. Because they had no sex ed and I was the one friend who actually learned something from their parents. Edit. No. When you go to sleep, Your period stops. God. I wish. They taught us that if you have sex, you are dirty and disgusting. It became confusing to me as a child to be excited when someone announced they were pregnant. I thought it was only good if you ended up pregnant. First year of high school. In 2012. Women can get pregnant by masturbating. See. When they masturbate, they start to create spermatozoon and they get pregnant. Mind blown. Semicolon. Edit. To clarify, this wasn't in the USA. It was in France and in a public high school. I'm not sure if the guy was a teacher or a special intervenant, but he was a full-blown grey-hair mid-40s early 50s adult. Basically the guy asked who believes women can get pregnant alone, and no one raised a hand. And then he explained us that when women get excited, they get wet. And in the wetness they carry little spermatozoon and can impregnate them. The room was dead silent for 45 minutes. We got out of there like WTF. If it reassures you. I don't think anyone believed what he said on the subject. Not me. But my sweet mate in college. Girls should jump up and down after sex to avoid pregnancy. Also, he told the girls to have an aspirin with coke before or after sex to avoid pregnancy. They played a movie and said talk to your parents or preacher if you had questions. She graduated with 3 girls who had children already. So, yeah. All that jumping up and down didn't exactly work. I was in life management class during my 10th grade year. We had just started a lesson on pregnancy when our teacher pulled out a picture diagram showing the difference between a baby developing after vaginal impregnation and anal impregnation. I inquired about the booty baby and our teacher claimed it was a result of an LSX. And said baby could but should not develop in the anus. I mean, I don't think this really counts, but my class made us watch the Lifetime movie She's Too Young, a movie about a high school that has a huge chlamydia outbreak, which made it seem like that was gonna happen to our school if we had any sex, so that I suppose. Condoms are latex and latex is like a net. So all condoms are full of holes, so the only safe sex is married sex. We then all threw a giant sperm puppet through a basketball hoop to demonstrate how obviously useless condoms are. We also did the tape thing. The passing around of an unwrapped piece of candy, you not. It was a wine cherry cordial Hershey's Kiss. Got shown slides of genitalia with untreated STDs. And got exactly zero useful or even true information. Also, the giant sperm puppet was made out of a horrible orange and black quilting fabric and had googly eyes for some reason. My husband affectionately refers to my sense of style as Ossigostitute. So we can see how well that worked. Probably the biggest thing that ate me up was learning girls don't actually want sex. It's something they give up for guys they like. And guys who want sex from girls are manipulative assholes who aren't interested in girls' personalities. I blame movies and TV. And a lack of openness about the subject from my parents. Eventually though I learned that it's totally possible. As a guy. To both want sex and be a decent, respectful person. Another big one was that female sexuality isn't just centered around men. Girls have a sex drive too and have their own needs to fulfill. I had a bit of a wake-up call when a girlfriend told me I can just say I want to have sex instead of awkwardly trying to romance her with random compliments. I also realized I'd been under the impression that when she asked me if I want to have sex that she was telling me what she wanted. Not offering to do me a favor. Went to Catholic school in South Texas. My sex ed was you are all too young to have sex. If you do you will be a sex offender for life. Then we learned about the legal problems of being a sex offender. Not totally wrong. But lots of girls had to leave when they ended up pregnant. Mine brought in and cut up condoms to show us how flimsy and useless they are. There were so many pregnant girls in my graduating class. Just look at how flimsy these are. My teacher would say, a glass of water is the best contraception. You don't drink it before or after sex. It's surprising how many people, both male and female alike, think that women urinate from the same hole as you menstruate from. Also, for a long time I thought testicles could move around freely in the sack and switch sides whenever, until I tested it out on an unsuspecting boyfriend. I got confusion and disbelief and laughter. I'm just glad I didn't hurt him, honestly. Edit. I know what a torsion is, y'all. I gave it to a different boyfriend, but it was because we went a little too hard one night and not because I was twisting his balls around like some Benoit. I accompanied him to the hospital and got told all about it, and it's never happened to me since. Stupid ancient technology. Balls need to go wireless. I had a girlfriend who at 16 asked me when my period was. I thought she was joking, but she was serious. I guess her religious background had left out a few details. I ran into a few other surprises, but that was the strangest. Edit. I am a male. Makes more sense when you think about the story this way. A girl in my 6th grade class asked if clitoris was a type of dinosaur. I think about it every goddamn day. When I was very younger, I heard on TV, it's that time of the month again, referring to a woman's period. I asked my brother what this meant. The dick proceeded to tell my 6-year-old self that once a month, a woman sheds her skin. Like a snake. Fast forward to when I was 7 or 8. Being suspended for asking a girl I liked if I could keep her skin when she was done with it. I was taught in my super backwards Christian school that condoms cause AIDS. I know this doesn't fit the topic, but I actually received excellent sex education while attending a Catholic high school. The class was literally taught by a priest too. It was very scientific and statistics based. About the most inaccurate thing that was taught was natural family planning methods of birth control can be up to 100% effective. Another student in the class suggested this was an exaggeration, considering her parents were using natural family planning when she was conceived. We then had a legitimate discussion about the topic. No mention of condoms, the pill, etc. Just pictures and videos of STDs. And a claim that the only safe sex is married sex. We were also given a paper contract to sign promising abstinence until marriage. Catholic education at its finest. Later on in high school, a guest speaker told us that work on the pill were going to make crocodiles and seagulls extinct because it was making them gay. She told the entire school to immediately stop taking the pill. After enough complaints, the administration finally announced that she wasn't qualified to give medical advice. Abstinence is the only way. Any other way could lead to your death or agonizing pain. Here's a graphic picture of a vagina with genital warts. Here's a penis with herpes. Now get into groups and color this chart about how if everyone had sex with multiple people, everyone would die of AIDS. Condoms don't work. Birth control doesn't work. All of it will get you pregnant and DEA dead if you have the sex. I. My mom didn't know she ovulated once a month. She just assumed it was really hard to get pregnant because people were always trying so hard in soap operas. So yeah, here I am. My mother. All sex means is whether you're male or female. Thanks, mum. True but unhelpful. Nobody ever told me what a period was by the time I was old enough to have it. I got it when I was 12 and genuinely thought I was dying when I went to the bathroom and peed blood, but was also so embarrassed. I took my friend aside who was a year older than me and I was like, look, what I'm about to tell you is really serious and also very gross, but I think I'm dying and oh sir. And she did the whole "you're a woman now" thing, and I had to learn what periods were from my French teacher who was supervising our after school club. Good job, public school. And to think I live in New England and not the Bible Belt. Also, I was big into anime as a kid. Was scrawny and didn't know what titties actually looked like under shirts. And this was back when anime had a lot of stylized and kinda pointy boobs. So I remember seeing my ribs poke out when I was like 8 and being excited that I had boobs already like Sailor Moon. My school told us that using birth control was like robbing a bank and not getting caught. The rhythm method was the only acceptable method. We had a guest speaker come in to talk to all of us about keeping our purity. This was an all-girls Catholic school in 2005. The speaker told us that girls who have sex before marriage are like paper cups. They're meant to be used and thrown away and forgotten about because they have no value and are not worthy of being treated with respect. Girls who have sex once before marriage and then repent are like a chip mug. Someone has damaged them and a lot of people won't see their value, but someone out there might still want them. Girls who save themselves for marriage are like teacups. They're beautiful and priceless, and someday a man will see how valuable they are and treasure them and shelter them and keep them safe. This was absolutely the last thing I wanted to hear as a 15-year-old victim of sexual assault who already had terrible self-esteem to begin with. I'm 28 now and I still struggle with feelings of shame and disgust surrounding sex and my own body. Not me, but my dad grew up in India. And he told his girlfriend, now my mom, that dudes had periods. My mom and her friend spent an entire night looking through textbooks to prove this. Best part? This wasn't me, but I do have a funny relevant story. So, my freshman dorm was right next across from the bathroom and right next to the dorm of the most popular guy on the floor. As a result, it became a bit of a hangout spot and people would end up congregating there a lot. Well, one night I got woken up from a bunch of people yelling outside my room about whether or not a woman could get pregnant from swallowing semen. Then a guy comes out who I'd always known to be pretty smart, so I expected him to set everyone straight. Imagine my surprise when he calmly explains that, since babies gestate in the stomach and swallowing goes to the stomach, women can obviously get pregnant from swallowing. Edit. Hey guys. Did you know that this is actually possible? You just have to get stabbed first. Wasn't me. But my friend had sex education taught by their religion teacher. The teacher said that if you jizz on a girl's breasts later on that night when she is sleeping, the eggs can come out from her womb vagina and take the sperm from her breasts back to the womb. I generally switched schools a lot as a kid. The only real thing I learned about sex ed is where the genitals are, which I had already knew, and where ovaries, eggs, testes are. That's literally it. Somewhere between switching school zones I missed an entire semester of sex ed. So most of what I knew by the time I started having sex is what I learned from my peers, which was generally a bunch of slang. So to put it in a little bit of perspective, until I was 17, I didn't know what oral sex was, and just thought that eating her out meant putting food there and eating it. At the time, I couldn't figure out why anyone would be turned on by that or what would make it SI. My middle school basically taught students that sex was not pleasurable for women. I grew up in a small town in Texas who was very abstinence is key. But we did have a here's what everything is class, and when going over the sexual anatomy of a woman homework with my mother, she became irate to notice that the clitoris was not included in the terminology. She proceeded to teach my twin sister and I about Doris the clitoris and called the school the next day to complain. She's my hero. I was taught if you blow into a penis then it will kill the man. I only discovered that it wasn't true a few months ago at the age of 29. At the very most it would kill the mood, lol. I grew up with only one parent who was a religious nut and homeschooled me my whole life. The only things I knew about sex were from church or youth group talking about it. I was told the first time a woman has sex it is always extremely painful, as you will break her hymen, and that her body would release a chemical that would make her permanently in love with whoever did that to her. I also thought women rarely, if ever, had an orgasm, and if they did, it was from 1 hour plus of constant eyeing. I thought my girlfriend faked it when she came in less than 5 minutes the first time. My first time was surprisingly not that awkward. But my girlfriend was amazing and very understanding. We get married in less than a year. A teammate on my 6th grade ex-country team told us that she was told by her 16-year-old pregnant cousin that the dick goes in the butt. For several years I thought an L was the normal way of doing things. My only other real sexual education was historical romance novels. My mom read them and we used them to start our furnace in the winter. I'd read a page, toss it in the fire, Repeat until I felt it had stale it. My teen years were very confusing. My parents never had the talk with me. So everything I learned was from 2, 3, and 4th grade sex ed. From a Christian private school. So it was limited. I just remember the boobs in the book they gave to us. Everything else I learned from PRN. I always assumed that as a girl, I have no say in how often I want to have sex. That would be up to my boyfriend to decide. Same. My dad actually taught me if I told my hypothetical spouse no, he would either start to hate me or cheat on me. Even if I only said it once. That an IUD whirls around and cuts up the sperm. By a high school sex ed teacher. There's enough comments here that likely nobody will see this. But I'll mention it anyway. I went to a Catholic school. And there weren't any sex ed classes. The closest thing were the religion classes trying, and failing, to convince everyone that contraception was a sin. So one time my teacher was talking about how it's a sin to use a condom because, to quote Monty Python, every sperm is sacred. Someone pointed out the obvious. And asked about using them to prevent STDs. And my teacher explained that you shouldn't use condoms to prevent STDs because they are not 100% effective. Imagine we use that reasoning for other things. There's no point in buckling your seatbelt. You might die in a crash anyway even if you have it on. Well, I mean, you could do chemo to treat your cancer. But it might survive the treatment, so there's really no point. Our local school division allows parents to opt their kids out of sex ed in the reproduction units in science class. There were several girls who left for the entire reproduction unit in my grade 12 biology class. Teachers in our elementary schools who are pregnant aren't really supposed to talk about being pregnant. Parents will make angry phone calls. Oh. I can answer this. So. In middle school. Our PE teacher was tasked with sex ed. So she brought in a friend from Planned Parenthood. And she gave really good advice and generally good information. Well. Some religious, bat crazy, people didn't like that and demanded that they bring in a not a minister to give us the abstinence and God and Jebus bull. Told girls that no one would want to marry them if they had sex. Told guys their dicks would fall off if they masturbated. Told people they were going to hell, a bad place for sinning having sex before marriage. And that using condoms almost always resulted in pregnancy. Lots of girls end up pregnant young. Lots of parents were outraged. I believe the FFRF was contacted, but I don't think anything really came of it. Not something I was actually taught or told. But a conclusion I came to because I couldn't grasp any other reason. I thought for years that if an interracial couple had a baby, there would be something wrong with the baby. I thought this because there was an interracial couple in my neighborhood that everyone talked on because they were mixed. 6-year-old me knew that an incestuous relationship increases the odds of genetic defects in the offspring. So I thought it must be the same with a black person and a white person getting together. The couple in question were both awesome people and had an amazing relationship. So it had to be something like that. Right? I was in 7th grade before somebody set me straight. Stupid late 70s early 80s racism. My mom actively tried to suppress me learning anything about sex. Whenever she heard me talk about anything related to it, she tried to tell me you're too young to know about any of that. Once when I was 18 she heard me mention to one of my friends that Ellen DeGeneres is a lesbian. And she told me no. You don't know that word. My mom said that she took a pill and I just started growing inside her. Now I know she was joking. But I'm not sure why she assumed that was a good joke to tell a kid that would most likely believe her. Babies ain't delivered by storks. And God will let your family pay you. Both of these statements are true enough. It wasn't what the speaker was saying. It's how she was saying it. Just shouting a list of STDs. Telling us a bunch of stuff about condoms not always working. And the date only without SL desire. Because that should not come first. Sex before Christian marriage sanctioned by Jesus is what causes STDs as punishment. Public school. When I was in high school back in the 80s. Living in Tennessee, no surprise there. There were no sex education classes. However, the head coach for our winning football team, who also taught economics, would answer any and all questions asked of him on the subject, even if it took away from otherwise valuable class time. There was a long time when I was young that I believed that if you had your period and put a tampon in, you could just pee and the tampon would soak up the pee. I had no idea there are two separate holes.